Welcome back to the 18th episode of Blue Collar, White Collar, with me, Kieran, and my co-host, Nicholas. How you doing today, Nick?
I am good, Kieran. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Nicholas.
2026. First of the year. Coming off of a hot, what do we call it? The Collies. Remember the award?
Yes,
I thought that was pretty funny.
as do our viewers.
But holy smokes, has 2026 ever started off with a bang?
It's been a long
and
year.
we're going to talk about it. It's been a long year. 2 weeks.
Yeah. So I'm going to start out by not apologizing because she's more important than the rest of you are. And I have a beautiful baby girl who is in the next room. And if she's crying, I will attempt to mute myself if possible. And if not, you're just going to have to put up with it.
Congratulations on your new baby.
Thank you. That is all the details you will receive about her.
Yeah.
So.
What's nice is that someone else has a new baby. His name is President Trump, and he named his little baby Nicolás Maduro. Exited the womb that is Venezuela.
I had no idea where you're going.
I'm trying to segue us. Into the topic of the day.
That's great.
But unsurprisingly, the biggest thing that has happened in 2026 by far, and this is actually, argue, the biggest thing to happen in years geopolitically, is that Donald Trump sent special forces into Caracas, capital of Venezuela, and kidnapped their sovereign but illegitimate leader, Nicolás Maduro. Brought him back prison in New York, if I'm not mistaken, and are now laying claim to Venezuela's oil, the largest reserves in the world. Pretty wild. Kieran, what's your initial take on what's going on?
I think it's fucking hilarious that they're charging this man for drug crimes and weapons possession crimes. Federal laws when he wasn't even in the country. How the fuck can you do that? Does that mean that they could just... That means that if they were able to charge this man and convict him, they could legally kidnap a Canadian citizen and charge them for possession of marijuana. Like, this is fucking stupid.
Accuse them of dealing to the U.S., right? That's basically...
Yeah, exactly. So...
Where the analogy ends.
The whole thing is an absolute farce, and it's just another case where the United States is just proving to the world that they don't want to be a nation, they want to be an empire, which is just a travesty.
It's fascinating, I think, to watch, and in a bit of a horrifying way, but we are watching history unfold before our eyes. The rules of the game are changing. Trump is blatantly violating international law. There's no debate. Did you violate international law? You did, 100%, period.
He just doesn't care. I do want to disagree with you about that. I don't think the rules have changed. I think the rules have always been that international law is bullshit, and it's always just been the United States does what it wants to do, and if you disagree, then too fucking bad. And now they're just doing it blatantly without pretense of, actually, we are following the rules. But I agree with I agree with your criticisms, but yeah.
Let's kind of think back to the build up to World War II as a bit of context. The world was in the rise of fascism and
Communism.
Nazism. You have communism in the East, and we don't know, right? Everyone's kind of vying for power. There aren't really rules that govern international law, right? A nuclear bomb has never been dropped, right? And all of a sudden, all these things changed at once. Like World War II completely reset the board, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything changed. And among many of those things was that they set up international law. They set up the United Nations, and the United Nations was basically charged with make sure World War III doesn't happen, because World War I and World War II had happened so recently after World War I that I think the world went, okay, we got to figure out how to avoid the world getting into these huge conflicts, right? And I would argue that international law was a big reason why the Cold War didn't erupt into an all-out war, because they had both just seen the Soviets and the Americans what global warfare looks like, and no atom bombs were dropped, and the conflicts were obviously happening everywhere. You had Vietnam probably is the best example, but you have the Cuban Missile Crisis. None of these were
Korea
anywhere near the scale. Korea, of course. And I think that while there have certainly been clashes, that international law has held, right? There have been no disasters near the scale of the Holocaust since World War II.
I mean,
would you agree with that?
There's been many activities that were done in the same vein, but they're just on smaller scales. The Rwandan genocide.
Rwandan genocide did not have anywhere near the death toll of the Holocaust.
But I'm saying
it was just done with machetes, and it was so
it's horrible,
horrific.
Now you have what's going on in Gaza, which I would argue
obviously
is also breaking international laws, of course. But again, my point is that the United States is always doing things that violate international law. Because international law is actually just bullshit, and because the United States is the big kid on the playground, he gets to set the rules and he gets to break them when he wants to.
But that's not a new discovery, though, Kieran, right?
No, it's not. It's just now
we've always known that international law is breakable. There's no one to enforce international law, right?
Now,
so long
now
as you have countries.
Now it's just they don't care about the pretenses of pretending that it matters. That's what's changed recently.
Right. So kind of coming back to our discussion, Trump is essentially saying international law doesn't really apply to me. And he said this in a New York Times interview. I don't know if you heard it, but they asked him, what stops you? Like, what is the thing that governs your decisions and determines whether or not you will do something? Domestic law, international law. And he said, my own morality is the only thing that can stop me from doing something, right? And what that says is, I am a president who believes he is good. People do believe that they are the protagonist, the hero, right? And from Trump's perspective, he absolutely believes that he is, the world's savior, and can't fathom why he hasn't received a Nobel Peace Prize, because he is the best and greatest person that has ever lived, right? Like, that's what he believes fundamentally. And so I think that Trump going into Venezuela, there was never a question of violate international law. Will this give China permission to go into Taiwan? Does this totally annihilate our ability to criticize Russia for their war in Ukraine? He didn't think about any of that.
Yeah, which all those things are true.
He went, I want the oil in Venezuela. I want, I don't know how much each of these factors played into his thinking. I want less migrants coming into the States, trying to get into the States from Venezuela. I want less drugs coming there, even though Venezuela, the drug that they they export is cocaine. It's not fentanyl. And fentanyl is the drug crisis in the United States.
And you know what? We should be thanking cocaine, because without cocaine, Stephen King never would have written half his books.
And cigarettes.
Yeah,
that guy was apparently a chain smoker.
Yeah.
back in the day.
No, it's funny how
Um,
it's funny how terrible the U.S. propaganda, in order to justify these types of actions, has gotten. You know, you look back
yeah,
at the it's like WMDs in the Middle East, and then they're like, oh, Iran might develop nuclear bombs someday, and then now it's like they were selling drugs.
yeah. All of a sudden, the moment that they wanted to go into Iran, they were like, Iran is super close to a nuclear. No damage to their facilities, basically.
Yeah.
Now we never hear about it.
No, because it was all bullshit. It was all just because Israel wanted them to, and
Mm-hmm.
now this is all done because a select section of the United States population wanted them to, mainly Hispanics down in Florida. You know, your Marco Rubio types. You know, they love this type of
Well,
shit. They've been trying to get rid
I
of
think,
Maduro for decades. Well, not
yeah,
decades. He's only been in power for like 14 years. Still, basically since he came in, and they didn't
yeah.
even get rid of the regime. His vice president took power, and she's probably a worse person than Maduro is, based off of the things that I've heard about her.
Yeah. It's fascinating. So yeah, like maybe just to structure the discussion a little bit, I think we should talk about oil specifically. I think we should talk about Marco Rubio, and then I think we should talk about like the global order. Does that make sense? As like kind of three big points to touch on.
Sure, and we'll go in that order because you end up with the largest, most consequential one at the end.
Okay, here is
Or
my
or maybe
like
not.
here's my framework for understanding what happened in Venezuela. Um, Donald Trump, at his inauguration ceremony, had some of the world's richest people in the front row. Elon Musk donated apparently something to the like $270 million to the Trump campaign
Wish I had that kind
and
of money.
got Doge. I don't. What would you do with that much money?
Um,
Um,
Philanthropy for most of it. I don't need that kind of money, but it'd be nice to have so
I
that
guess,
you could.
I guess if it appeared, but you only make that kind of money by fucking people over. Um, but anyway, my point is
Or winning the lottery.
that Trump, uh, which is a system designed to fuck people over.
Yeah, but they choose to. That's different. They're actively
Yeah,
choosing to. They're the ones paying it.
it's just people with a gambling addiction.
Yeah, you're
Anyway,
right. You're right.
I think that there has been little effort to conceal, I think, who Trump's true, the people that he truly serves are. Who are these people? It is those billionaires. Serves the billionaire class, right? He did that, I think, with the Big Beautiful Bill. That's probably the biggest example. Do you know how much money he cut? How many taxes he cut from the top 1% of earners in the United States?
No, I wasn't paying attention.
$900 billion.
It's basically just a drop of the bucket in their coffers anyway.
The Pentagon. That's like the Pentagon budget for a year.
For a year, yeah, exactly, and they fail it anyway and spend more money than that.
It is wild. How big of a tax cut these billionaires just got. It's nuts.
But that's over several years. That's not per year, is it?
It is over several years.
Yeah.
But it's the biggest tax cut in history for the wealthy. Period. He has also failed to regulate and deliberately kept AI totally unregulated. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Heard about no legislation coming out of the Trump administration to try to ensure that AI does not run away from us.
No, and not only that,
right?
they've put legislation into effect, or have attempted to ban states from potentially regulating AI, which is a blatant violation of way that the of federalism is supposed to work, where each state is supposed to regulate things on its own.
That's right. Um, so it's pretty scary, and I think that this all connects in Venezuela because of the oil. And what specifically, Kieran, will the oil do for the American economy? He says it'll bring down gas prices, or prices at the gas station.
And probably make people rich. People who are already rich more rich.
The data centers that power AI consume huge amounts of energy.
Yes.
All of a sudden, the US is consuming way more energy than they used to, right? They were already importing tons of energy from us, from the Saudis, making a lot themselves with fracking. But the demand for energy to fuel these data centers is through the roof. I don't think people understand how much energy it takes to power AI.
Oh yeah, people's power bills have skyrocketed to the point that they're really pissed off with their legislators because of it.
Crazy, it's crazy, and yet, of course, no one in the Trump world is going to say to these big tech giants, no, right? They're saying we want energy for our AI centers. Go get it for us. Okay.
I will say this though. I could be wrong about who it's with, but I believe Trump recently had a conversation with Elizabeth Warren where they're going to try and work together to pass legislation so that data centers won't cause people's power bills to go up. And I think they're also working together on housing, which is hilarious that he's working together with Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, I hadn't heard.
Yeah, you should look into
about that at all.
Yeah, he called her, or she called him. No, he called her.
Anyway, so I think that Trump's incentive for going into Venezuela is to appease these donors, these big billionaires who are backing him, and so I do not expect the price of oil to go down. I don't suspect people's energy costs are going to go down, even though that's what the narrative is, right? They're saying the oil that we get from Venezuela is going to bring down your prices at the pump.
So
it's not true.
Here's where I'm going to disagree with you at a certain point, because from what I've heard, Maduro had already said that he would sell the oil to the United States. And the only reason that the United States wasn't buying Venezuelan oil was because they had restrictions on that themselves. They put restrictions on that they wouldn't buy Venezuelan oil. So they could have had access to it even if they wanted to. And then on top of that, it's a very thick kind of oil, from what I've heard, that is more difficult to refine, and therefore it's going to take more investment in order to get it to market. To me, this seems like much more, yes, that's a factor, but it seems much more like an ideological project by neocons who just love getting rid of people they dislike. It's not necessarily that he was a socialist leader. That doesn't fucking matter to them, because they're willing to get rid of authoritarian right-wing leaders if they're in the right region. They love taking out leaders. They love starting wars. These people are fucking crazy. They never realize that what they do is killing uncountable amounts of people. They just love the war, and if anything, it's probably more of a military-industrial complex project than an oil project in my eyes. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Interesting. Yeah. It seems to me, and I kind of wanted to save this piece for the, part 3 of our discussion. But it almost feels as though the U.S. has this huge military that absolutely can take over North America and South America and Greenland, like no problem. And there's a bit of this like, what are we using our military for, right? Like you saw what Israel did with American,
Yeah.
the backing of the military industrial complex, right? They have all, exclusively American weapons, and they have become the military hegemon in the Middle East. Nobody can fuck with them. America has a lot more than Israel, and they're not doing anything with it.
See, the fact that I would prefer if
let's
they
just
didn't do
fucking
anything
take
with it.
over America's. Let's just take it over.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it seems like. They're going to go in, and any leader that is not actively friends with them, I think they're going to slowly, one by one, try and eliminate them. Maybe not militarily the way that they did with Maduro, but they will definitely try and push them out of office. They definitely want to get rid of Scheinbaum in Mexico, because she's, for all intents
Apparently
and purposes,
apparently behind the scenes they're actually working quite well together.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But if they really wanted to deal,
Cuba,
if they really wanted, yeah, definitely Cuba. If they really wanted to deal with the drug problem, they would fuck with two of their largest trading partners, which is Mexico and China. But they're not going to do that to deal with the real fentanyl problems, because it was never about drugs. That was always just an excuse. But yeah, I could totally see them. They took out Maduro. Who knows? You might move on to the next guy. Whether it's the leader of Peru or Argentina or who the fuck knows.
Colombia.
Yeah. So it's, in my eyes, it's an ideological project of neocons.
Well, it's a return to imperialism, right? Plain and simple. We're not going to colonize Venezuela, but we're going to stop one level short of that, which is we're going to take control of the country, and more specifically the country's natural resources, which is far more copious than those of their neighbors. The others are not sitting on the same oil reserves, right?
Oh, absolutely. Venezuela is rich in resources, but here's the thing, so is the United States. If the United States really wanted to make a shit ton of money, they would develop their own natural resources. Same thing here in Canada. We could be disgustingly wealthy if we actually opened some mines and actually harvested some of our natural resources from the ground. The thing is that the United States and Canada, we don't like doing that because it's dirty for our environment. So instead we outsource that to poor countries where third world folk that we seem not to care about their lives as much are going to do it instead.
I don't agree with that.
Right. What do you not agree?
I think that Canada and the United States is super not shy about extracting resources and exporting them.
No, the amount of natural resources that we have, well, we wouldn't export them. We want to keep them for ourselves, to make ourselves rich off of. But no, the amount of natural resources that we have here in Canada.
You have to sell them to get rich. You got to sell them to get rich.
Okay, fine. Yeah, you're right about that. Or you could develop them into products yourself and then sell that. But no, the amount of natural resources we have here in Canada, like the amount of uranium we have in Saskatchewan, I think it's Saskatchewan, might be Manitoba, alone, is just ungodly, and we won't touch it. We would be kings of kings. We would be so rich if we actually developed it, but we're not touching it because of environmental reasons. And I can understand why you might think that that's a good idea, but instead we outsource it. You look at the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom doesn't make steel anymore like they used to. So instead, they pay the Indians to do it, and the Indians do it a lot dirtier, and they do it a lot less safe. And so it's just a thing that the West has done, where we've outsourced all of our dirty jobs to foreign nations of poor people. It's one of the most disgusting things that we've done as a civilization.
Yeah, I agree with the second part of that. I don't necessarily agree with the first part.
That's fine.
Maybe we can discuss that on another episode.
I would love to.
You, dear listener, may recall that we awarded one of the Colley Awards was which one was it? It was like the puppeteer, like
The
best
bloodbender.
player.
The bloodbender.
The bloodbender. Yeah, thank you. I gave up that award and I gave it to,
Marco Rubio.
very regrettably, no, I gave it to Netanyahu.
Oh, you did. Yes, that's right.
But I gave a special mention to Marco Rubio. And I would like to delve into that a little bit more because Marco Rubio, holy ever, a huge 180-degree turn from the U.S.'s approach to foreign policy under Biden and under Trump 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think, and we talked about this a little bit, but just for context, Marco Rubio, presidential candidate in 2016, referred to by Trump as Little Marco. Behind the scenes, he and Trump became quite close over the years, both in his first term and during the Biden years, to the point where he was considered as one of the top picks for vice president. And we were unsure whether it was going to be J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio. But in the end, both these guys got, some of the highest level jobs in the Trump administration. And what we are seeing now is Rubio totally exercising his agenda in the Americas, because Marco Rubio comes from Cuba. I think he has a strong aversion to socialism, communism.
Reasonably so.
And I think that he has a much more philosophical reason for going into the Americas than Trump does. I think Trump is very economic, whereas it's ideological, right? I think Marco Rubio wants to reshape the Americas, Latin America specifically, to be much more in line with the American approach to democracy and to capitalism.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that. I think, look, I share his aversion for socialism and communism, obviously, as a libertarian, but the fact, I completely disagree with the concept of it's then your job to go into a foreign nation and fuck them up because they've decided to do those things. That's their nation. They want to make those decisions. That's up to them. That's what sovereignty is about. And for some reason, they just, because they're from these areas, they think they have the right to do that. It would be like if we went into the UK, because you and I both have some British heritage, some UK heritage. We went there and fucked them up for their stupid decisions politically, which is just fucking nuts. Like, just because your family's from there in some level doesn't mean you have the right to go back and take out their leader, as much as I don't like Keir Starmer.
I think two things. One, Marco Rubio would tell you that Maduro is not a legitimate leader, and that taking him out is not taking out a sovereign because he actually lost the election in 2024, I believe.
Okay, so by that logic, by that logic, did Russia have the right to go in and take out Joe Biden? Or say Donald Trump, depending on, like, in 2016, they said that you heard people like Hillary Clinton saying Donald Trump knows he's an illegitimate president because Russia interfered. Like, could another country come in and take out their president? No, it's not up to them. That should have been up to the people to take him out if they deem so. It's not up to the United States to do that.
But that takes revolution. That takes organization. It takes weapons. Like, it doesn't just happen because the people will it.
It's the only way it
however,
can happen.
I agree with you that the U.S. does not have grounds to go in, but I'm just saying that this is the argument that Marco Rubio would make.
Yeah,
right?
It's fucking patently absurd.
And it's accompanied by the Monroe Doctrine, which has been talked about a lot in the news. But the Monroe Doctrine basically arguing that the world ought to be divided up into kind of spheres of influence, spheres of power. with, one sphere of power existing in the Americas, one in Europe, and one in Asia. And basically, that's how the world is divided.
There's two problems with that. The Monroe Doctrine was introduced in order to effectively keep Europeans from controlling American territories. America as in the North and South America territories. Not in order to prevent American territories from being powerhouses in their own right. And two, if you believe in these spheres of influence, China has every right to take back Taiwan, fuck Japan up in order to unwesternize them, fuck South Korea up in order to unwesternize them, and every other. What about Australia? Australia is in their hemisphere. Why don't they have the right to fuck them over and replace their prime minister? So it all comes down to your borders are your borders. That's where your influence should end. Period. End of story.
And yet, Trump is saying to China, you can have them. You can have Korea. You can have Japan. You can even have Australia if you want it. We'll throw in New Zealand.
With these actions, absolutely. They're justifications.
So long as you leave us the fuck alone, take Mexico, Canada, Greenland, Venezuela, fucking Brazil, if we have to, Argentina, and control all the resources, the natural resources. Like, Kieran, not to kind of go back to your earlier point, but like this desire for natural resources, like, the rare earths. We've heard so much about Trump trying to extort Zelensky for rare earths in Ukraine, right? The U.S. does not have such natural resources that they can just, extract them, sell them, and get rich off them. Like they have done that, and they have become the wealthiest nation in the world. But it's not as though there's a whole lot they can keep doing infinitely. They need to go elsewhere. They need to find resources elsewhere. Why do you think they're interested in Greenland?
From my understanding, that's military control. Right now, Greenland is a giant ice sheet, and it would be too difficult to extract these resources in the current state.
Climate change.
This is why Canada is
melting.
This is why I've always said, if climate change really warms up the earth, Canada, Russia, Greenland are going to be the places to be. We're going to have beautiful climates here.
I think we've talked about this on the show before, anyway. Right? The idea of more land becoming livable further to the north. Yes. You're right. The equator countries are the worst positioned.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about with regards to this idea of, you'd mentioned earlier that one of the reasons to go into Venezuela was to deal with the immigration problem. But what happens when you go in and you fuck with the country? It's absolutely bullshit. What happens when you go in and you fuck with the country? Look what happened to Europe after Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq. Millions and millions and millions of Arabs and Persians flooded up north into Europe because their countries were destabilized. If they wanted less Venezuelans coming into their country, what they would do is close the border and let Venezuela do its own thing. Instead, if they were to cause chaos by taking out the leader, now currently the regime is still in power, so it's really not that destabilized, but if they took out the entire regime and caused chaos in Venezuela, probably millions of Venezuelans would flock north. That's the only reasonable thing to do. Where else are you going to go? You're going to go to the place that's most likely to accept you. Right now under Trump it's not, but wait 4 years, because at his rate, next president is going to be a fucking Democrat, and they're going to open the borders wide up because they're going to have a much more pro-immigrant sentiment than even they did 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. I should learn more. I don't know much about how Mexico deals with all of the immigrants flooding up from flooding. It's a bit of a not the right word, but so many people who are fleeing to the United States have to go through Mexico, right?
So
and there are many who don't get in, who end up in Mexico.
From what I've heard, they basically let them come in and walk through or bust them through as long as they say they are not going to stay there. If they say they're going up to the United States, they basically just let them make their way to the United States.
Oh yeah,
from what I've heard.
because they could close. That's a tiny border, right? Mexico, Colombia. That border is tiny.
Yeah, they should build a wall.
Build a wall. No, they should. We just gotta fix the economy in Latin America.
How about we don't fix it? They fix it themselves. Because when you try and intervene in another person's culture without a full understanding of circumstances and as people's culture, you usually end up just fucking up. Social interventions usually cause more harm than they intend.
You're right. And we've learned that lesson over and over, or we failed to learn that lesson over and over and over again, right? I think, you talk about the regime still being in power. The regime has been neutered, right? Maduro was extracted, and then Trump said, with us, Madame Rodriguez, right? I think that's the VP who's now in power. You better work with us, or something will happen very similar to what happened to Maduro to you, right? And so I think that, and you see this in her response, they are compliant. You have all those U.S. ships that are kind of parked just outside Venezuela, and they're basically saying, like, "You gonna work with us? You gonna work with us?" It's with a gun pointed at their head.
What I don't understand is that Maduro had basically said that he would do that. He said, Donald Trump admitted that in a conversation, Maduro said, "We will give you everything." All he wanted was to maintain power.
We will sell you everything.
Fair enough. But, okay, Venezuela's not going to hand the oil to the United States. They will sell it, and they will likely sell it undervalued because of the situation. But they're not just going to hand it over.
No. The infrastructure, well, for one thing, of course they're not going to hand it over. They're going to sell it. But I think that the argument or the reasoning in the Trump administration is they don't have the infrastructure to extract oil at the speed we need them to. Even if they were giving it to us, their infrastructure is so fucking shit. Get nearly as much energy as we need in the time that we need it. So
because they're a socialist country.
They're an authoritarian country.
They're a socialist country, so they haven't developed their infrastructure properly as if they had market economies.
Kieran, we are a socialist country.
No, we're not. We are a capitalist country with heavy social safety nets. It's a vastly different thing. Same thing with Denmark, same thing with Norway. Those are all capitalist countries with heavy social safety nets. There's a massive difference between that and a true socialist country.
Not true.
Yes.
I would actually say that's not true at all. I think that the gap between, not to get into this, but the gap between socialism and kind of democratic capitalist countries is much smaller than the gap between socialist countries and communist countries, right? Socialism just implies a bigger role of government. Sometimes a government kind of, they have more control over the means of production.
Right.
They often have stakes in big companies. There's a lot of public shares, public ownership in socialist countries, but the idea is the same thing. There is still the power of the free market, the power of innovation, the power of competition.
Not in socialist countries. They own the means of production. They control these things.
They don't.
We do not have that situation. The company that I work for does not work for the Canadian government. This is a vastly different situation than what you're talking about. Socialist countries have a top-down economic system where the government decides when they need to upgrade their technology, when they need to buy materials. It's instead of individual corporations who make decisions for their own products. I don't really
Kieran, if that were true, sorry, last point, and then we can move on. If that were true, the democratic socialists in Canada, in America, would be advocating for the state taking over all private ownership of the means of production, which they are not doing.
Well, number one,
nobody says that.
Number two, because they're
None,
not they're
none
not
of
they're
none of the
not
ones
as
who are
they're not
legit.
really they're not real full on socialists, because they don't yet, there are some who are, absolutely. You just have to find the right
Absolutely.
idiots. But they don't understand what true socialism is. They, when they talk about socialism, they give examples like Denmark and Norway, and these are democratically controlled capitalist economies with heavy social safety nets, like Canada is. There's a massive difference. Even I think it was the leader of Denmark. I could be wrong. It's one of the Scandinavian countries. Said online. He said, "Bernie Sanders, stop saying we're socialist. We're capitalist with heavy social safety net." Because that's what we are. We're not
Yes.
socialist. We might like to think that we're socialist in certain ways, but they're not the same. They're vastly different.
I I understand your point, and I accept your point. All I'm saying is that I think we might have slightly different understandings of what socialism is, and I'm not entirely sure that I agree with your definition.
Fair enough. I'm sure that
We
we have
can have a
disagreements on these
conversation
things.
about that
Let's get
another
back to
time.
Venezuela,
Uh,
because I would
let's get
argue with
back
this
to
all day.
Venezuela. Yeah, me too. um, okay, let's kind of move on to the just like the broad strokes of just the realigning of the global order. What do you think, Kieran, this move in Venezuela means for Canada?
I really don't think it means that much for Canada. I think to me it means more for somewhere like Greenland, because Greenland sees this and they go, okay, the United States is really willing to do things beyond the norm, that they're willing to break international law. I don't think that they are going to invade Greenland because they have no reason to put boots on the ground because there's so few people. But they will absolutely strong arm the, I believe they're Danish, right? Yeah, the Danish government
Yeah, that's Denmark. Yeah,
into
Denmark.
handing over Greenland at subpar value. They're not going to pay full market price for the land of Greenland. So for Canada, I think it's going to have fairly minimal impact on us, other than like, you have to deal with Donald Trump in a different way than you did 6 months ago, because he's he's clearly listening to the wrong people. I think Marco Rubio and Stephen Miller are probably the two worst appointees in his entire government. I think the Trump government would be vastly different with two different people in those positions. If they had someone who were less of a war hawk and less of a
Yeah,
pure, I don't even know exact. Stephen Miller he's basically he's basically a white supremacist. So
he is a white supremacist.
if you actually had people who had reasonable positions on things like international relations in Marco Rubio's position, and reasonable positions on immigration in Stephen Miller's positions, I think the Trump administration would likely be not favored, but like 10 plus points ahead of where they are right now. 10 to 15 plus points ahead of where they are right now in their approval rating. I think those two things
Well,
are the thing that people hate
they're
the most
losing on
about.
the economy. They're losing on the economy.
True.
Um,
Which would, if they were good on the economy, that would put them over into the favorable. I'm saying right now, with those two changes, they would be just outside the favorable. With the doing well in the economy would put them over into the favorable. But yeah, I don't think Canada. I don't think it means that much to Canada. I don't know. You clearly you asked the question, so you must think that there is something that.
yeah. You know, Trump is a quarter of the way done his term.
Or an eighth.
I I don't think anything as drastic as invading Canada for its natural resources is
Our bountiful
on the
natural
horizon.
resources.
Is on the horizon for Donald Trump, right? I don't think that the U.S. are coming in the next 3 years. However, that this is setting a precedent creating this realignment that will have long-term implications
Absolutely.
in Canada.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that Venezuela has, I don't think that, I know that Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. And of course, that holds true in America, the Americas. Canada has the second, right? So what happens when 10 years down the line an AI, whether they're still controlled by humans or themselves, determine that they need more energy and that they can get that by seizing Canada's oil fields, right? Maybe it's something as dramatic as just going in and annexing parts of the country, specifically Alberta.
I think Alberta would be okay with that.
Or maybe they fuel efforts of the separatist movement in Alberta and get them to join the States, right? And all of a sudden,
that is 100% more likely than actual boots on the ground.
What happens though, Kieran, when we start running low on clean water? We have all the water. We have the Great Lakes.
We have all the water.
We have all the water. We have the fresh water. I am worried that with climate, we're going to start seeing a lot more areas that are either flooded and thus become saltwater, thus become undrinkable. Lakes are going to merge with the sea. We're going to see a lot more drought and, the drying up of, certain lakes and rivers over time. The Great Lakes will remain as one of the kind of foremost freshwater reserves in the world. And I wonder what happens when the Americans in 30 years are desperate for fresh water.
So in 30 years, I'm hoping that with a sufficiently intelligent populace and government, which, that's not going to happen, and sufficiently advancements in technology, desalination won't be a problem. Like, desalination is already a thing we can do, but the problem is it's energy inefficient, and therefore we don't do it.
Scale. It's at scale. We can't do it at scale.
Right, but here's the thing. If every country that could had their own supply of nuclear power, and I'm going to go into the nuclear power because I think nuclear power is the solution to most of our problems in terms of electricity. I think that would be... I think the water issue would be a non-issue in that point, because we could have such abundant amounts of electricity that we would not worry about that. And it wouldn't even need to be nuclear, because currently there's also people working on fusion power.
Nuclear fission.
We have fission. We
need
fusion power.
Fission.
We need fusion power, which is basically free power. You need hydrogen, which is the most abundant thing in the universe. And so if we ever are able to reach fusion power, say the right one, then the desalination issue is not an issue whatsoever. So I'm hoping that we're able to reach that in an early enough timeline that we don't have to worry about the water problem. I know that Canadians often think about the water issue because we do have the Great Lakes, and so the world would be coming to us if they needed water. Yeah.
Kieran, I think you should run for Premier of Saskatchewan. Just get that uranium.
Don't even live in Saskatchewan. You're closer to Saskatchewan than I am.
Maybe that needs to change.
No, we don't want to move out west.
Just saying for the uranium argument.
How about Prime Minister of Canada? You could be my. You could be my right.
Are you kidding me?
Man.
I'm the opposition leader, buddy. You think I want to be in your fucking party?
You'd have the most influence. You'd have more influence as my right-hand man than you would as the opposition leader.
Ooh, the age-old question: am I willing to sell
parts of your soul in order?
Values? Yeah. Am I willing to compromise on my values in order to get a few things done? The Stephen Guilbeault question, as they say. So anyway, I'm, I think we all got when Trump was talking about Canada as the 51st state. I don't know that they were ever serious about it. There was never a plan. They're disorganized, right? The Trump administration is not an administration that is thinking long term.
No.
They haven't really done anything in Congress. They've just kind of ignored Congress and they've governed through executive power. So I don't know that they are in a position to annex a country. Like, we're going to see what happens with Greenland. I think that's going to be a big story in 2026. We already see the Europeans landing troops in Greenland. Have you seen this?
No.
The Europeans are putting troops on the ground in Greenland as a dissuading force.
Interesting.
Not that they could fucking do anything if the U.S. wanted it.
Yeah, it's pretty much only China at this point.
Yeah, but China's so far away. They're kind of cool. They're like, you know what? We're gonna
give a shit.
Stay. We're gonna
that ice
keep it local.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, ice agents in Iceland or in Greenland.
I want to go back to what you said a moment ago about the Trump administration and the fact that they're so chaotic. I think that they would be vastly more popular if they took the time to, instead of just doing executive orders, if they took this first year and part of next year to plan and do investigations. Like, everything they've done badly because they've dove headfirst without thinking. Doge was done in the stupidest way possible. ICE and immigration is a miserable failure. Look at what's happening in what is it, Minnesota? Because of the way that they're going about this, instead of taking the time, doing investigations, finding the real criminals, and finding other ways to don't just fucking go in and take people. Like, you can take people legally, you're allowed, but you have to do it correctly. Right? And if you took 2 or 3 years to figure it out and do it right, people wouldn't be having the problems that they are having right now. And also, same thing with tariffs. Take a couple years, put into legislation, figure it out, do it smartly, and people wouldn't be freaking the fuck out the way that they have over everything that's happened this last year. Should have taken 2 to 3 years before it actually got done.
I know
you disagree with most of those actions, but if they were done correctly, it would have been on such a timeline.
Yeah, and look, they had the House and the Senate backwards ready, right? Like,
yeah,
they can do whatever they want.
The Democrats were bent over, spreading their cheeks.
And it's very likely that they're going to lose the House in the midterms, right? So it just kind of feels like if you wanted to do congressional stuff, like, now is the time. I heard an interesting argument recently that the Trump administration governs in news cycles, right? Where they actually just do extreme things until the news cycle is over, and then they do a new extreme thing. And they kind of govern that way, right? Where there's actually not a whole lot going on other than the thing that's in the news. And we kind of feel as though there's tons going on all the time. But when you listen to Biden, when you listen to Obama, when you even listen to Bush, they would always complain that we're doing all this stuff that's not getting any media coverage, right? There's so much more happening behind the scenes. Even first-term
Trump was like that.
Yeah, there's so much more happening behind the scenes than is getting news coverage. And it almost feels like it's the opposite now, where now Trump only governs and is focused on a thing based on its lifespan within a news cycle, and then they move on to something else, right? And they keep you enraptured at all times. They have mastered, and Trump, say what you will about Trump, he is a master of attention. He understands attention better than I think anyone he understands media. Media is attention, though, right? They're the same thing. And I think that his style of governance is, aligned with that cycle, right? He does it on purpose. So the moment we start talking about something else, like the politics of distraction, right? Trump is not fixing the economy, period. That's the thing people care about the most. They care about high prices. They care about inflation. Trump is not doing anything on those things. In fact, he's doing the opposite,
'Cause it's
right?
not in the news.
He's ravaging people's healthcare costs, their premiums are going up. He's giving these tax cuts to the billionaires who are, using the oil, creating energy for their AI centers that will make them even richer, right? It's bonkers, but it's true. And I think that Trump is very deliberately trying to give people something else to talk about. And that's a classic move that politicians do. It's just that Trump has escalated it, where he is always diverting your attention away from his failures, right? Like, think about the Epstein files.
I'm glad you bring this up.
That's a huge deal. What did he do? He did a thing.
He flipped
to
someone
distract
off
us
the
from
other
the
day.
Epstein files.
Oh, never mind.
No, this is last year. This is in like what was the fuck? It's crazy. You can't even remember what happened in like November anymore. But he did something like, I don't know, he bombed Iran, or I don't know. He did something.
So you want to hear?
He distracts us from the bad stories about him, right? He wants to be the guy at the end of every news cycle who fixes the problem.
So my conspiracy theory in this is that this politics of distraction that you're talking about is the idea, and that they're doing it intentionally to keep us from looking at what they are actually really focusing on. It's something like maybe it's covering up for the Epstein files. Maybe it's something that we don't even have any idea about. Because most of these people, most of these people are not stupid people. They might be fucking crazy, but they're not stupid people. So, like, it could be entirely possible that they are doing a lot of this crazy shit and absorbing all that media attention to keep eyeballs off of other things, like whether that be I don't know, the massive gambling problem it's like the second largest growing industry in the United States right now is gambling. It's AI, really? Gambling, and I'm pretty sure porn is up there. But I think at this point porn is just becoming part of AI with all the AI porn that's
AI porn out. Yeah,
which is great, by the way. It's called The Joke People.
I was gonna say, have you watched the we'll talk about this off air.
Yeah. What was I gonna say?
Can I change topics?
Sure, go ahead.
If you have something you want to say on this, please go ahead.
I was just thinking about, the other day I was thinking to myself how I think in the last 5 years, not this past year, but the 4 previous ones under Joe Biden, I feel like Donald Trump has changed so drastically. Donald Trump used to, like, his first 4 years as president were so different than what's coming out now. I feel like he got radicalized on the internet in the way that people talk about people getting radicalized on the internet. Because before he was like, he focused on things like the problems that Fox News would talk about. Now they focus on the shit that's happening on Twitter and on True Social. And yeah, he still watches Fox. I feel like he's radicalized. He's not the same guy that he was at the start of 2016. It's weird. And his presidency as a result is a completely different. Foreign policy is a 180 completely as a result of this fucking chaos that's happening to him. I think if he had won the 2020 election, he would not be doing the things that he's doing today. I think he would have continued on the presidency that he had, been a fairly moderate Republican president, and left, and it not been this thing that we're going to be talking about for 20 years.
Yeah, interesting. Do you wish Trump had actually won in 2020?
Oh, absolutely.
That's a fun what if question. Yeah, I think it's a couple things, right? You're right. I think he has become radicalized. I also think that the people around him in Trump 1 were much more establishment. There was a lot of roadblocks. There were a lot of people who were standing there to say no to him when he wanted to do something wild, and all those people are gone. I also think there is a politics of revenge and retribution, because Trump has been impeached. Trump has been, there have been so many protests against him.
Charged.
He's been shot at. He's been charged. He's a criminal. The Democrats did do everything very incompetently, but they did everything that they could to get him, right? And they never got him. Or at least they got him, and then he became president.
What's that line? If you're going to take a shot at the king, don't miss.
That's right.
And they missed.
They missed.
Metaphorically and
they got
literally.
the shot and they missed. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so I think Trump feels that he wants to destroy his adversaries. I think that he has been, to your point, I think he has been, so many of the things that are talked about online, he's been convinced by them, especially that God saved him and that he now governs with divine purpose.
Yeah.
I believe that's true. I believe that he believes in God. I believe that that he has a destiny to restore America's greatness to what it used to be, right? And that there was divine intervention to save his life.
You know what's funny? I don't think
24.
I don't think 10 years ago, I don't think he was a believer in God. I think when he got hit,
I agree.
I think when that bullet didn't kill him, I think that's exactly what happened. He all of a sudden is like, yes, God is real and he saved me.
I kind of wonder whether I would have that reaction too.
I mean, it's hard not to.
What do you think would happen if a bullet grazed your fucking temple?
I have no idea, because bullets never even come close to me unless it was in my hand.
Here's the question that I wanted to ask, and I realize we should wrap up soon. Maria elected of Venezuela.
You cut out a bit. So could you?
Sorry.
You cut out. So
the duly elected president of Venezuela, Marina de Corchado. Probably not right.
It's definitely not right. I'm gonna look it up just to be respectful.
Oh, please don't cancel me, internet. She won the 2024 election in Venezuela. What's her name?
Corina Machado. Maria
Corina Machado.
Yes.
Mayor of Montreal, the new mayor. Her name is Soraya Martinez Ferrada.
Okay.
She's Chilean.
Those Hispanic people love the three names.
Yeah, so does my family. She got the Nobel Peace Prize. Where is it? But Maria, I'm just going to call her Maria, got the Nobel Peace Prize for her work advocating for democracy in Venezuela. And you know what she just did? Like yesterday?
What?
She went to the White House and gave her Peace Prize to Trump.
Yeah, see, to me, that's just a political play. That's just her trying to get
them.
That's just her trying to get them to install her as the president of Venezuela.
And I think she was pissed when they didn't, right? Because
absolutely,
to Maria Corina in Venezuela takes a lot more effort. What the Americans have done so far, right?
They've done
the
nothing.
Americans went in, they took one guy and they left,
and his wife.
One guy still holds.
You're not wrong. They didn't only take one guy.
They only took one guy. But to replace the entire regime,
it's not
set up an entire government for Maria Corina, a lot more work, right? And then you're really in the project of nation building
Yeah, regime change.
that has failed over and over and again, right? And I don't think Trump wanted to do that, right? So it's pretty simple to me, right? It just says, look, let's take out their guy. And it's kind of like what Israel did, right? It's like, let's just take out their leaders, right? And replace their leader with a new leader that we don't like. We'll take them out as well. And we'll keep taking out leaders until we get one that complies with us.
There's like one Venezuelan guy left, and he's like, I guess I'm president.
Yeah. Presidente? It's like, this seems to be a very modern way to approach taking out enemies. Is let's just take out, like, if we have a superior military to you, we're going to kill your leader, kidnap him, and when you replace them with someone who is, just as defiant, we'll take them out too. And
unless you have nuclear weapons.
Very true. But over time, you will eventually come to understand that we can keep doing this forever until you give us someone we like, someone who's willing to work with us.
Until that one guy
And
left.
I think this woman Rodriguez, understood that very quickly. She goes, oh, you can come in, you can set up all the infrastructure, extract all of our oil, take it. Like, it's criminal. They're just fucking thieves, the Americans, but they don't care. We have the military.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, so...
Is going to come help you? You think Russia's going to come help you? Because they ain't.
No, they don't really care.
Sorry, I just need to get my charger. I'm going to die, so apologies for moving here.
Please don't die, Nicholas. I can't host the show without you. So I'm conflicted about this, because I prefer the idea of taking out the leaders of evil regimes rather than going in, having a full-blown war, having a bunch of innocent people dying. Uh-oh. Are you still here?
Still here.
Okay.
Just keep going. Keep going.
There's going to be a recording of two of me on here, and we're mirrored images. It looks weird. I'm going to stare at myself. Look this way. Yeah, I prefer that idea rather than going in and having a full-scale war, having innocent people die. But at the same time, I also know that just assassinating leaders, it doesn't usually change much, because oftentimes the people underneath them are more radical. Someone like Vladimir Putin's a terrible man, but he is actually a moderating force in his own government. Like, a lot of the people under him are far more radical than he is when it comes to the ideas that they hold. So this is a reason why, in my eyes, you should just not do this in any capacity. But I prefer the idea of just going in and taking out leaders, because I know Maduro's a bad guy. Killing him, I wouldn't really be that upset. Killing 10,000 people in his country and 300 or 400 people, American soldiers, dying as a result of it, that's way worse in my eyes. So in many ways, this action of just taking out the leader, they went in, killed a few people, took out the leader, it's so much a cleaner...
600.
Is it really that many? First number I heard was 80, but I haven't been paying that much attention to the news the last 2 weeks because I have a baby.
Why?
Because I have a baby.
I know why.
Where was I?
Yeah, well, just if I can jump in and respond to what you're saying, I agree with you that if you're trying to improve things in a country, a state, killing a leader is probably not going to do you any good. However, this is not the goal, right? Trump is not trying to, like the presidents during the Cold War, and even kind of like Bush, his goal is not regime change. His goal is not to install a capitalist democratic regime in Venezuela. He doesn't care about democracy. He's not an ideologue. Donald Trump does not have a kind of grand philosophy of how the world should be governed, right? Trump is a businessman, and he believes in every man, every country for themselves, I think he believes that power, hard power, is the only power, and that we have it all, right? We, the Americans, have the hard power, and we should be able to exercise it to benefit ourselves, right? Now, if Trump was actually solving poverty with this ideology, that would be an interesting debate, right? To talk about
your benevolent dictator idea, like
you could argue that China has kind of done that, right?
You could argue. I don't think you'd win.
China has created a vast middle class in the last 25 years.
Yes.
I don't think that's arguable, and they have not needed democracy for it. Now, we could dedicate a whole episode to that.
I think you and I both know why that is not a complete
yes.
sound argument.
I may be leaving out certain parts that make my argument. All I'm saying is that Donald Trump did not take out Nicolás Maduro because he believed Nicolás Maduro was a bad man and that Venezuela would improve when he was gone. I'm sure he thought, bad guy, take out the bad guy because I'm a good guy. I'm going to take out the bad guy. And my friends benefit from it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, let's also keep in mind that this is a second term. Presidents govern very differently in their first term and their second term.
Yes.
They're trying to get reelected in their first term, right? In their second term, they're usually pretty unleashed, where they're just doing shit to do shit. Like Obama did a lot of stuff in his second term that probably not the most politically sound move. Legalizing gay marriage, signing the climate accords.
I don't think legalizing gay marriage, like I think that was, yeah, of course I believe that's perfectly fine, but I think politically I don't think there was really any pushback from that. The next president who came in, Donald Trump, became the first president to be inaugurated being pro-gay marriage. So it's not even like the first Republican president that came in after him pushed back against it. No, Donald Trump was for that.
Yeah. It's not really the debate I'm trying to have.
No.
I think it was a risk, and the risk paid off. But I think that it was a risk that Obama might not have taken if it was his first term.
Absolutely.
Right. So.
It's actually what you're saying is actually an argument to get rid of term limits. Because if you're
always governing to get reelected.
If Clinton had been able to run again, he would have won in 2000. He was extremely popular. He had 60% approval rating.
You could argue Obama would have won in 2016.
Well, if this would have been a thing, we never would have gotten Obama, because Clinton would have kept going until he lost the approval, which probably would have happened with Afghanistan, assuming he made the same mistakes as Bush, especially with his wife. We've seen how much of a war hawk his wife is. And then you likely would have had a Republican come in either in 2004 or 2008 instead. So it'd be a completely different dynamic. But yeah, if we would have changed that during Obama would have won 16 and then probably would have lost in 20 is my guess. I don't think you really get more than 3 terms, even if you can.
Look at Canada. We often surpass, like usually, well, not usually, but a lot of prime ministers get reelected twice. Like they get 3 terms. Sometimes it's a minority, so it only lasts 2 years.
And then they're ousted.
But yeah, Harper got 9. Trudeau got almost 10. Chrétien got 9.5. Mm-hmm. Like all these guys got elected 3 times.
Yeah.
Whereas American presidents can only get elected twice.
I don't think they need term limits. I don't have a position on whether they should have it or not, but I don't think they need them. I think the natural process would solve the problem. I don't think you'd have a king.
It's a democratic instinct, right? People want change. People always want change because it's never perfect, right. And people run for office saying, "I can make it better."
You might have,
and that's obviously.
You might have a 4-term president, but they'd have to be extremely popular, and something crazy would have to happen that would.
There was a 4-term president.
Yes, FDR, and part of the reason was because he was the leader during World War II, and he fucking carried them through, and he died in early into his fourth term, but he was elected for it. So
I think FDR might be my favorite president.
that's funny. I think mine's the other Roosevelt.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Teddy's a badass.
I have a quote of Teddy on my wall, actually.
Ooh, show me.
I'll do it after.
Okay, fine. Anyway, you want to wrap up here, Nicholas?
Let's wrap up.
Final words.
Way to start off 2026. I am expecting this to have ripple effects across the world. I wonder whether we will see China they've actually never technically held it, but I wonder whether Taiwan happens this year. Because it's going to happen, right? It's going to happen. I wonder whether it will happen before the end of the year. That's a bit of a prediction for me. I have a great friend who is Taiwanese, and we talk about it a lot. And he's very scared. So it's serious stuff, but it kind of feels as though the U.S. no longer has any ground to stand on, right? And so, what will happen there? What will happen in Greenland? I think there's going to be some of the big geopolitical stories. I think there's going to be some changes in Ukraine. But yeah, we are kind of in a lawless era. I feel like we're entering into a more hard power, pre-World War I even era where we really are just governed by strength, and that the soft powers of the world, Canada being one of them, are going to be forced to play a much more hard power focused game. And I think that's what Carney's doing, right? Trying to diversify our economy, because economics is a form of hard power, right? Alongside military. And I think that what this signals, just broadly speaking, is a return to a more hard power focused world.
Yeah, well, it's not looking great. On that note,
say something. No, that was a bad thing. Say something smarter than that, Kieran.
Oh, I wanted to end it like that. That would have been hilarious.
You're too smart to end with that. Come on.
Fuck, I don't know, man.
Come on. You got nothing?
You're not gonna relate to this as much as I do, but in the universe of Star Trek is a universe where the people of Earth live in a utopia. But between the time that it was created and the time that the show takes place, World War III takes place. And it's only after the chaos of World War III and millions upon millions of deaths does the utopian society of the Federation and rise up. And I hope we don't have to go through that, but I pray that if we do go through that, on the other side we rise up and are better for it, in the same way that we were after World War II.
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. Your newborn daughter is going to see the world fundamentally change in her lifetime.
Absolutely. This is not going to be the world that she was born into in 25 years.
And even the world that she was born into is not the one that you and I were born into, right? Like,
Nicholas, we're supposed to be wrapping up.
You're right. Thanks for stopping by.
That's my line.